Watch the moment Bernie Sanders finds out Trump launched strikes on Iran live during his rally. Hey, y'all, and welcome to Malcolm Veyron Hearing. My name is Malcolm, and while Donald Trump is out here bragging about launching airstrikes on Iran without congressional approval, the rest of us are left holding the Constitution he just trampled on like it's a napkin at Mar-a-Lago. This isn't just reckless, it's lawless. And it's time we remind every billionaire-loving warmonger that this country belongs to us, not just the rich and the reckless. Let's get into it.
This is a statement from Donald Trump, quote, "We have completed our very successful attack on the 3 nuclear sites in Iran," etc. I agree. And I want to tell you something. Not only is this news that I've just heard, the second alarming that all of you have just heard, but it is so grossly unconstitutional. All of you know that the only entity that can take this country to war is the U.S. Congress. The President does not have the right . I was talking a moment ago about the fact that we are living in one of the most difficult moments in the modern history of this country, and Trump just made it that much more difficult. That's just another burden we're going to have to carry, and that's just another message we're going to have to get out all over this country. The American people do not want more war, more death. You know, it might be a good idea if we concentrated on the problems that exist in Oklahoma and Vermont rather than getting involved in another war that the American people do not want. Let me just say this, that in the midst of all of what is going on, what is enormously important is that we do not give up on a vision of where this country must go. What the establishment wants you to believe is that you have no power, that you can't accomplish anything. They have it all, nothing you could do. And in this moment in American history, what we have got to do in Vermont and Oklahoma, in Texas, all over this country, is stand up and fight back and tell them this is our country. And I don't care if you are a progressive, a moderate, or a conservative. This country belongs to all of us, not just a handful of billionaires. And when we look out into the future, the kind of America we want, let's understand a few things. Number one, Instead of giving tax breaks to billionaires, we should demand they start paying their fair share of taxes. No, we should not be throwing 16 million Americans off the health care they have. We should be doing what every other major country does, guarantee health care to all as a human right. This is not a radical idea. It exists in virtually every other wealthy country. The function of a rational health care system is not to make hundreds of billions for the drug companies and the insurance companies. It's to provide quality care to all. When we look into the future, we must demand that every worker in America earns a decent wage. Raise the minimum wage to at least $17 an hour. We can create millions of good-paying jobs by union jobs, by building 5 million units of low-income and affordable housing. Not a radical idea, not a radical idea to say that in a competitive global economy, every young person in this country, regardless of income, should have the right to get a higher education. We can and must make public colleges and universities, community colleges, trade schools, tuition free. And when we talk about freedom, and many of my colleagues talk about freedom every day, well, what freedom means, among other things, is that every woman in this country has a right to control her own body. And let me just say this. These are tough times, and you just heard 5 minutes ago, going to be even tougher. But in the midst of all of that, not just for our lives, but more importantly for our kids and our grandchildren, we have got to understand that despair is not an option. That's what they want us to believe. None of us have the privilege of hiding under the covers. The stakes are just too high. And I would like to remind all of you, a short history lesson, that throughout the history of this country, what we have always seen.
Just moments after learning, right in the middle of his rally, that Trump had launched airstrikes on Iran, Bernie Sanders didn't skip a beat. He turned that shock into fire, ripping into a system rigged for the ultra-rich. What he said next brought the crowd to its feet. Let's take a look.
At this point, let me begin by asking Secretary Hegseth about congressional intent. We worry about the explicit choices that the Congress has made and that have been enacted into law by the president in the fiscal year 2026 budget. The decision came to us surprisingly to zero out destroyers, even though Congress intended for reconciliation to give the industrial base stability with a third DDG in fiscal years 2027 and in 2029. I've asked this of every nominee from the department who has come before us about honoring congressional intent. We will put funds in the reconciliation bill, working with the House and working with the administration to get the signature on the bill. And we will make clear alongside that the specific congressional intent. I've asked this of every official, and I will ask you as well, Mr. Secretary, do you commit to following congressional intent unequivocally on reconciliation?
Well, thank you for the question, Mr. Chairman. Yes, our team looks forward to working with this committee, both through the budget process and reconciliation, and would acknowledge, just as a starting point of the conversation, that we are looking at 2 bills and 1 budget at the Defense Department. So as we have discussions about allocation, we may sometimes be talking about different numbers because of that, but from our perspective, we built a budget tied to $960 billion.
Are you qualifying your explicit yes? Because we have not had that from any of the other witnesses that have come before us. If our congressional intent, alongside the numbers in reconciliation, is explicitly expressed, do you commit to following congressional intent unequivocally in reconciliation?
Yes, we just wanted to clarify the entirety of the budget from our perspective.
Well, thank you very much. Now, you said once before that, and I quoted in my opening statement, Mr. Secretary, that going below 3% of GDP would be very dangerous. That was your testimony in January. Of course, you know well that we're asking our allies in Europe and NATO to go to 5%, and it has been the intention of most of us on the committee that the United States lead by example and, in fact, follow the peace through strength example of President Reagan and his administration in getting to 5%. I understand that if you put reconciliation and the budget requests together for this year, it exceeds 3%. But if we go back to that same baseline for the next 3 years after that, we'll be under 3%. We intend to fix that. But do you still agree that going below 3% would be a, quote, very dangerous, unquote, choice?
Yes, sir, and so does the President of the United States, which is why this budget increases from FY25 13%, puts us at 3.5% of GDP on defense, and we feel like is a generational increase in defense capabilities. And when you add that alongside the $30 billion we've already found in savings and repurposed, that's where I get to the $143 billion in additional spending in defense, which we think is substantial.
And you agree then, Mr. Secretary, that in future years, it would be very dangerous to go below that 3%?
As I said in my remarks, we're going to match our budget to threats. And so, yes, in the future, we anticipate threats like we have today. And so I would anticipate a robust budget in the future. Yes.
Would you please be kind enough to answer my question? Would going below 3% in future fiscal years be, quote, very dangerous, unquote, as you said in your statement in January?
Yes, sir, and I believe the President of the United States definitely feels the same way.
Thank you, sir. Senator Reid.
Malcolm here, and let me be clear. What just happened isn't just outrageous. It's a full-blown constitutional crisis. Donald Trump, in his usual recklessness, announced a unilateral military strike on Iran. No congressional authorization, no public debate, just an impulsive, dangerous move from a man who treats the presidency like a personal war room. That is not how a democracy functions. That is how authoritarianism creeps in. And let's be honest, the American people are exhausted. They don't want more war. They want clean water in Flint. They want affordable insulin. They want jobs that pay enough to cover rent, groceries, and childcare. But what did Trump give them? Bombs, tweets, Distraction. He didn't consult the people, he didn't consult Congress, and he certainly didn't care about the Constitution. But here's the bigger picture. This moment demands more from us. Trump's actions are part of a broader strategy to convince Americans that they're powerless, that billionaires and lobbyists are the only voices that matter. That is a lie. This country belongs to all of us: Vermont, Oklahoma, Texas, California, progressives, moderates, conservatives alike. If you care about democracy, if you believe in decency, now is the time to fight back. And what are we fighting for? A future where billionaires pay their fair share in taxes, a healthcare system that prioritizes patients over profits, a living wage of at least $17 an hour for every American worker, affordable housing, tuition-free colleges, reproductive rights, and yes, hope. Real hope. Because this is about our kids, our grandkids, and the country will leave them. No, this is not a radical vision. It's a moral one. It's a vision rooted in justice, fairness, and the core belief that despair is not an option. They want us to give up, but we won't, because this is just the beginning. More truth, more fire, and more clarity are coming your way. So stay tuned, subscribe, and don't miss what we've got in store next. This is Malcolm, signing off from Malcolm Veyron Hearing. See you next time.